Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So we will be reporting about the DepEd Order number 42, series of 2016. So here we have the reporters. We have Kirl Cabarse, Anna Marie Odto, Mary Grace Racho, and me, Alyssa Ashley Violeta. So DepEd Order number 42, series of 2016. So the DepEd Order 42 series of 2016, this is about the policy guidelines on daily lesson preparation for the K-12 basic education program. So this is for the under this is to the undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, bureau and service directors, regional directors, school division superintendents, public and private elementary and secondary school heads, and all others concerned. So number one, in line with the implementation of our Republic Act, RA number 10533, or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, the Department of Education, DepEd, issues the includes policy guidelines on daily lesson preparation for the K-12 basic education program. So basically, the RA 10533, this is to improve the basic education system of the Philippines by strengthening its curriculum and lengthening the number of years of basic education from 10 to 12 years. And this is for the daily lesson preparation, the DepEd Order number 42. And next, we have the planning lessons is fundamental to ensuring the delivery of teaching and learning in schools. So these guidelines aim to support teachers in organizing and managing their classes and lessons effectively and efficiently and ensure the achievement of learning outcomes. So basically, since DepEd Order number 42 is about the planning of lessons or daily lesson preparation, this is to ensure that there is an effective delivery of teaching and learning and to attain the students' learning outcome. So furthermore, these guidelines affirm the role of the K-12 teacher as a facilitator of learning. So as we all know, lesson planning is one way of planning instruction. So lesson planning is a way of visualizing a lesson before it is taught. So we predict and anticipate what will happen during the delivery of instruction, which is why lesson planning is essential in the teaching and learning process as it has the objective of learning, which is why here in this order we can see that the teacher is the facilitator of learning. So they are guiding the students to ensure that there is an attainment of learning. And preparing for lessons through the daily lesson log or detailed lesson plan and provide teachers with an opportunity for reflection on what learners need to learn, how learners learn, and how best to facilitate the learning process. So through the DLL and DLP, so the teachers will be able to know what is the best way of teaching the students. So these guidelines also aim to empower teachers to carry out quality instruction that recognizes the diversity of learners inside the classroom, which is committed to learner success, allows the use of varied instructional and formative assessment strategies, including the use of information and communication technologies, and enables a teacher to guide, mentor, and support learners in developing and assessing their learning across the curriculum. So by planning the lessons, teachers are able to lead learning progress and achieve or aid student attainment of the learning outcomes, and we can ensure that it is more effective since we can put or write in our DLL or DLP what are your strategies and what are the instructional materials that you are going to use, whether you are going to apply the traditional or the use of technology. So these guidelines will remain in force and in effect unless sooner repealed, amended, or rescinded. All issuances inconsistent with this order are hereby rescinded. So this is going to be applied in in the education in DepEd from primary, from kindergarten until the grade 12, and unless it is being cancelled or rescinded. So, and it is there is an immediate dissemination of and strict compliance with this order is directed. So this is to be indicated in the perpetual index under the following subject, which is the basic education, the curriculum, the policy, rules, and regulations, strength, curriculum, and instruction. So basically the lesson planning is going to be applied in the ed or the education of the students. So next is we have the rationale. So the Department of Education that recognizes that instructional planning is essential to successful teaching and learning. This is according to Dick and Racer 1996. So it is essential to the success of teaching and learning. This is because instructional planning is the process of determining what learning opportunities students in schools will have by planning the content of instruction, selecting teaching materials, assigning the learning activities and grouping methods, and deciding on the pacing and allocation of instructional time. This is according to the Virginia Department of Education, since we will be able to know the sequence of the delivery of instruction or the teaching or the discussion, and the teachers are able to put or to apply what are the her ways of teaching, her approaches and strategies, as well as her materials that are going to be used. So it is a vital step in the instructional process as it involves identifying expectations for learners and choosing the materials and organizing the sequence of activities. Furthermore, it helps ensure that the time spent inside the classroom is maximized for instruction, is responsive to learners' needs, and therefore communicates expectations of achievement of learners. So with the use of lesson plan or the DLL, so we can ensure that the time of the subject is all about the instruction or maximized for instruction. So so research shows that effective teachers organize and plan their instruction. So meaning it is the teaching is only effective if the teachers organize and plan their instruction. So that is with the use of DLL and DLP. So with content and performance standards and learning competencies firmly articulated in the K to 12 curriculum, it is easier for teachers to carry out both short-term and long-term instructional planning under the K to 12 basic education program. So teachers can in fact plan student learning for a year, a semester, a quarter, a unit, or a lesson and secure coverage of the curriculum. So it will be a lot more easier for teachers to organize and plan their instruction with the since we have the K to 12 curriculum guide. So DepEd issues these guidelines on daily lesson preparation based on the belief that planning is fundamental to ensuring the delivery of teaching and learning in schools. So DepEd believes that it is important, or the planning of lessons is crucial since it ensures the effectiveness of and learning of or the teaching and learning process. So daily lesson preparation also encourages reflective practice since it requires teachers to think about and reflect on their instructional practices on a daily basis, since they will create or make DLL and DLP daily, so they are able to reflect what are the students' way of learning and ensure that the students will really attain the learning outcomes. So according to the article 4, Section 2 of the Code of Ethics for Professional Teachers adopted in 1997 through Board Resolution number 435 by the Board of Professional Teachers states that every teacher shall uphold the highest standards of quality education, shall make the best preparations for the career of teaching, and shall be at his best at all times in the practice of his professions. So teachers are only able to create or give quality education if they are going to practice or use the daily lesson preparation, the DLL, the daily lesson plan, since this helps organize and plan the instruction or the delivery of their teaching. and ensures that there is attainment of learning outcomes. And this policy is therefore meant to support teachers in upholding quality education standards by affirming the importance of instructional planning through the daily lesson log or detailed lesson plan preparation. So these guidelines ultimately aim to assist teachers in not only effectively managing instruction but also managing the performance of one of their core functions, which is to facilitate learning inside their classroom. So this is not just to manage how they are going to deliver the instruction, but also to ensure that they are facilitating learning inside the classroom. And next, we have the instructional planning. And according to ISTARA 1994, the instructional process is made up of three steps. First, we have the planning instruction. Next, we have the delivery of instruction, and three, assessment of learning. So based here in the screen, we can see that planning instruction comes first. So this means that teaching begins even before a teacher steps in front of a class and begins a lesson. So planning instruction is also an important part of the instructional process. So this also means that teachers are expected to be able to organize and develop a plan for teaching, implement that plan, and measure how effectively they implemented a plan. And so that is all for my part. For our next reporter, we have Mary Grace Racho.
So next is the element of lesson planning. So as mentioned, a lesson plan serves as a teacher's roadmap for a particular lesson. It is a guide for instruction and contains details of what a teacher and learners will do in order to tackle a particular topic. Experts agree that a lesson plan should aim to answer the following question. First is what should be taught, second is how should it be taught, and lastly is how should learning be assessed. So first, I am going to tackle how the lesson plan should be taught. Next, please. So in planning daily lessons, teachers needs to follow the curriculum guide of the learning area being taught. And this aspect emphasizes that teachers should be well acquainted with the curriculum for the subject they teach. The curriculum guide serves as a roadmap for teacher and it contains the three key elements which are the content standards, the performance standards, and learning competencies. So the content standards, these are like the core topics or knowledge areas that the student should learn. And second is the performance standards. So this indicates the skills and abilities students should be able to demonstrate related to the knowledge. And lastly is the learning competencies. So these are the specific skills, the knowledge, and attitudes that the students should acquire during each lesson. It's like breaking down the content into smaller manageable goals for each day. And also, the lesson objective in a teacher's plan or teacher's lesson plan should align with this standards and competencies. So teachers can use the curriculum guide to plan not only for individual lesson but also for the entire school year. And by the end of the year, the student should have a comprehensive understanding of the curriculum. And to achieve this, teacher can utilize a variety of resources, including teachers' guides, textbooks, and online materials. However, it is very important to recognize that these resources are tools to help teachers guide their lesson effectively. They should not be confused with the curriculum itself, which is the overplan for what students need to learn. And next slide is how should it be taught? So with a lesson plan, teacher can predict which part of the lesson learners will have difficulty understanding. Teachers can then prepare strategies that help learners learn, build learners' understanding and respond to learners' needs. Teachers can explore utilizing different instructional strategies that consider learners' varying characteristics, including cognitive ability, learning styles, readiness level, multiple intelligence, gender, socioeconomic background, ethnicity, culture, physical ability, personality, special needs, and the different ways learners master the content of a particular learning area. So a good lesson plan takes into action that some parts of lessons may be challenging for students, and the teacher should prepare strategies to assist students in learning, adapt to their individual needs, and employ different teaching methods to accommodate diverse learning style. And also in the classroom, students should be active participants in their own learning, not just passive learners. And a lesson plan should describe how both the teacher and the students will collaborate to build an understanding of the lesson together. And next is how should learning be assessed? Next slide. So effective teachers not only prepare lesson plans, they also prepare an assessment plans or specifically a formative assessment plan. As defined in DepEd Order Number 8 Series of 2015 entitled Policy Guidelines on Classroom Assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program, formative assessments refers to the ongoing forms of assessment that are closely linked to the learning process. It is characteristically informal and is intended to help students identify strengths and weaknesses in order to learn from the assessment experience. And once the objective of the lesson have been identified, teachers need to prepare a formative assessment plan integrated into the lesson and aligned with the lesson objectives. So in addition to planning the lesson, Teachers teachers should also create assessment plans. The formative assessment, which is an ongoing and informal process, and it helps the students identify their strengths and weaknesses as they learn. And a well-structured lesson plan should include various methods for assessing learners. Students should be actively involved in assessing their own learning, and the data from the assessment should guide teachers in making necessary adjustments to their instruction. It's a dynamic process of monitoring and improving the learning experience. And next, please, is the daily lesson log. So, experienced teachers who have at least 1 year of teaching experience, regardless of whether they have worked in private schools or higher education institutions, might not be obliged to create detailed lesson plans or DLPs. Instead, they are expected to prepare a weekly daily lesson log or DLL, and so these experienced teachers are encouraged to actively collaborate with and mentor new or novice teachers, aiding them in the preparation of both detailed lesson plans and daily lesson logs. So these collaborative efforts aims to foster a supportive and cooperative teaching community where experienced educators share their knowledge and expertise with those who are newer to the profession, contributing to the professional growth and development of the teachers. And next slide. So the table below lists the DLL templates and the DLL sample attached in this policy. So the table 1 contains the DLL templates, and the table 2, which is in the next slide, contains the DLL samples. So the difference between DLL templates and the DLL samples are that DLL templates are essential like standardized outlines or structures that the teacher can use as a starting point to create their daily lesson plans, and they provide a framework that includes sections for lesson objectives, materials, activities, and assessment methods. So these templates serves as a guide to help teachers plan their lessons more efficiently and consistently. And next slide, please. So on the other hand, which is the table 2 contains a DLL sample. So these are the practical examples of daily lesson plan that have been already developed for specific subjects, grades, grade levels, or topics, and they offer a real life demonstration of how a lesson can be structured and presented. And the teacher can use this sample as reference to understand how to apply the template and design their own lesson effectively. And remember that DLL templates are like blank forms, while DLL samples are completed forms that show how to fill out the template with actual lesson content. But both are valuable resources for educators in planning and delivering effective lessons. So note that the DLL sample for us includes terms that are familiar to us teachers who regularly use terms in their Intercession guides anchored on the four A's, which is the activity, analysis, abstraction, and application. So the sample of daily lesson logs or DLL designed for the alternative learning system are made are made to be user friendly for all teachers. So these samples are used use terms and concepts that all teachers commonly use in their teaching material. So these terms are based on the framework known as the 4A's, which stands for activity, analysis, abstraction, and application. And these samples are created in a way that all teachers will find familiar and aligned with their teaching method and language. So these make it easier for them to use the DLL samples effectively in their classroom. So that's all for my part. And to continue the report, may I call on Miss Anna Marie Oddo?
So, good evening, everyone. This is Anna Marie Odto speaking, and for today, I will discuss with you the parts of a daily lesson log. So, next slide, please. So we have here the objectives. This part of the daily lesson log includes objectives related to content knowledge and competencies. So according to Air Asian 1994, lesson objectives describe the kinds of content knowledge and processes teachers hope their students will learn from the instruction. The lesson objectives describe the behavior or performance teachers want learners to exhibit in order to consider them competent. So the objectives state what the teacher intends to teach and serve as a guide for instruction and assessment. So as in this part, lesson objectives are important because they describe what teachers hope their students will learn from instruction and what kind of behavior or performance they expect students to exhibit in order to be considered competent. These objectives serve as a guide for both instruction and assessment, outlining what will be taught and what will be expected for learners. And the content standards refer to the learning area based facts, the concepts, and procedures that students need to learn, while the competencies pertains to the knowledge, the skills, and attitude that students need to demonstrate in a lesson. So the competencies codes are also logged in this part of the daily lesson log. So next slide, please. So we have also the content. So the topic or subject matter pertains to the particular content that the lesson focuses on. So the term content refers to the specific topic or subject matter that a lesson focuses on. Like for example, if you are teaching a science lesson on photosynthesis, so the content of the lesson would be photosynthesis, its process, and the related concepts. So the content of a lesson may be related to a specific curriculum, the program, or standard that is being taught in a particular classroom or educational setting. So in order to provide a effective instruction, teachers need to have a clear understanding of the content that they are teaching and how best to convey that content to their students. So they may use a variety of instructional strategies, the materials and resources to help students learn and understand the content. So we have also here the learning resources. So this part of the daily lesson log asks teachers to log the references and other learning resources that the teacher will use for the lesson. So the references include the particular pages of the TGLM, the textbook, and the additional materials from LRMDS portal. So this part of the daily lesson log asks teachers to list the references and learning resources that they will use for the lesson. And again, including the pages of the TGLM, the textbook, and materials from the LRMDS portal. Like other also learning resources may include teacher-made or authentic materials. So the section may also list supplies, equipment, tools, and other non-print materials needed for activities before, during, and after the lesson. So the purpose of this section is to ensure that all necessary materials are gathered and prepared beforehand to support effective teaching and learning. So the next slide, please. So in the next slide, we have here the procedures. This part of the daily lesson log contains 10 parts, including the first A, reviewing previous lessons or presenting the new lesson. This part connects the lesson with learners' prior knowledge. So it explicitly teaches the learners how the new lesson connects to previous lessons. So it also reviews and presents new lessons in a systematic manner. So this part of the lesson plan involves either reviewing the previous lesson or introducing a new lesson. So if reviewing the previous lesson, it aims to connect the new lesson with what the student has already learned. So it explicitly teaches how the new lesson relates to previous lesson. So if presenting a new lesson, it is taught systematically in a clear and structured manner. So this part is important in helping students understand the big picture and making connections between the lessons which can enhance their learning. So the next one is we have the establishing a purpose for the lesson will motivate the learner to learn the new lesson. It encourages them to ask questions about the new topic and help establish a reason for learning the new lesson. So establishing a purpose for the lesson is an important element of lesson planning. It involves motivating learners by helping them to understand why is it important to learn the new lesson. This is achieved by explicitly stating and clarifying the objectives and goals of the lesson. This encourages learners to ask questions and engage with the new topic because they see the value in what they are learning and how it will benefit them. So, by establishing a purpose for the lesson, learners are more likely to be engaged and motivated to learn. So, the next slide, please. So we have here the letter C, which is presenting examples or instances of the new shows, instances of the content and competencies. This is also where the concepts are clarified. So presenting examples or instances of the new content and competencies is an effective method of clarifying concepts and assisting learners in understanding the new lesson. So it involves illustrating the lesson using real-world examples, visual aids, or even scenarios that demonstrate how the content and competencies can be applied in real-life situations. And through this process, learners can see how the new lessons relates to real-life experiences, making it easier for them to comprehend the new concepts. So it also provides context and help learners envision how they can apply and use the new knowledge. So by presenting examples and clarifying the concepts, learners are better equipped to grasp the material and can more easily identify the relevance and implications of the new lesson. So in letter D, we have here the discussing new concepts lead to the first formative assessment. Teachers shall prepare good questions for this part. The teacher will listen to the answers of learner to gauge and if they understood the lesson. Because if not, then they reteach. And if the learners have understood the lesson, the teacher shall proceed the deepening the lesson. So discussing new concept is an important step in learning process because it enables learners to gain a deeper understanding of the lesson. This stage also serves as the first formative assessment where the teacher can gauge a learner's understanding of the new concepts. Because this is also to ensure effective assessment, uh, teachers must prepare good questions that ascertain learners' comprehension. And based on learners' answer, the teacher can also determine their level of understanding. So if learners have not understood the lesson, the teacher should reteach to help them understand. And if, on the other hand, if the learners have understood the lesson, the teacher can proceed to deepen the lesson. So by deepening the lesson, the teacher will allow learners to engage with the material at a higher level of thinking, such as exploration applications and implications. This leads to a better understanding of the new concepts and helps learners retain the information over the long term. Next slide, please. So we have the continuation of the discussion of new concepts, leading to the second formative assessment that deepens the lesson and show learners new ways of applying learning. The teacher can use like pair, a group, and teamwork to help learners discuss the lesson among themselves. The learners can present their work to the class, and this serves as the teacher's way of assessing if the concepts are solidifying and if their skills are developing. So in order to achieve this, the teacher can use various of strategies such as di ba, mga pair, the group, the teamwork to facilitate discussion among learners because this help learners to exchange ideas, challenges, and each other's thinking and develop new perspectives. And through these collaborative activities, learners can learn how to apply their knowledge in a novel context and refine their skills further. And as learners work on their activities, the teacher can observe their progress and identify areas that require further support or clarification. Because by using formative assessment throughout the lesson, the teacher can ensure that learners are consistently developing their skills and acquiring a solid understanding of the lesson. So we have here the letter F, developing mastery, which leads to the third formative assessment, can be done through more individual work activities such as writing, creative ways of presenting, learning, dramatizing, etc. Learning through accessible activities such as quizzes, worksheets, and sitworks, and games. So when the students demonstrate learning, then proceed to the next step, the teacher can add activities as needed until formative assessment shows that the learners are confident in their knowledge and competencies. So once the learners have deepened their understanding of the new concepts, so the teacher can move on to the third formative assessment, which focuses on developing mastery. So this stage involves providing learners with more individual work activities that allows them to apply their knowledge and skills in different ways. Like for example, learners can engage in activities such as writing essays, creating visual representations of their learning, dramatizing a scene from a story, or among others. So these activities require learners to take ownership of their learning and demonstrate their understanding in a way that is unique to them. So the next slide, please. Next slide, please. So as for the letter G, finding practical applications of concepts and skills in daily living which can develop appreciation and valuing for students' learning by bridging the lesson to daily living. This will also establish relevance in the lesson. So to further enhance learners' appreciation and valuing of their learning, teachers can help learners to find practical applications of the concepts and skills they have learned in their daily lives. This involves the bridging the lesson to daily living by showing learners how the content they have learned can be useful and relevant to their lives. Like for example, teachers can relate a math lesson on percentage to real life scenarios such as calculating discounts or tax. Similarly, a lesson grammar or writing can be connected to daily communications or writing tasks such as composing emails or social media posts. So we have here the letter H. Making generalization and abstraction about the lesson will conclude lesson by asking learners good questions that will help them crystallize their learning so they can declare knowledge and demonstrate their skills. So the final stage of a lesson is conclusion, where learners can make generalizations and abstractions about the lesson. So during this stage, the teacher can ask learners good questions that help them crystallize their learning so they can declare their knowledge and demonstrate their skills. Like, for example, the teacher can ask learners questions such as, what have you learned from this lesson? Or how does this lesson relate to your previous experiences or knowledge? And what skills have you developed? And how will you use them beyond the classroom? So those are the kind of questions that teachers must ask if they want to kind of measure where their students' understanding are. So by answering these questions, learners can make generalization and abstraction. So next slide, please. So we have here the letter I. Evaluating learning is a way of assessing the learners whether the learning objectives have been met. Evaluation should tap into the three types of objectives. So we already know the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor, di ba? So cognitive means the ability to recall, understand, apply, analyze, and synthesize. And when we say affective, it relates to learners' attitudes, their values, and beliefs. And when we say the psychomotor, it involves learners' physical skills and abilities. So for instance, A teacher can assess a learner's ability to play a musical instrument or conduct a science experiment. So, in conclusion, evaluating learning is an integral part of the teaching and learning process. So, the assessment should reflect the different types of objectives by testing for cognitive abilities, the affective values, and psychomotor skills to determine if learners have achieved the learning objectives. So we have the letter J. So flexibility is allowed in the delivery of the daily lesson log procedures. Teachers do not need to go through all the 10 parts in every classroom because teachers need to ensure that the procedures of the lesson lead to the achievement of the stated objectives. So the formative assessment methods to be used by the teacher should determine if the objectives of the lessons are being met. So these 10 parts should be done across the week. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we have here the remarks and the reflection. So in this part, remarks in the remark section of the daily lesson log is where teachers can indicate special cases that may affect or require adjustments to the lesson plan. This section can include continuation of lesson plan to the following days in case of reteaching or lack of time, or the transfer of lesson to the following days in cases of class suspension and any other unforeseen circumstances that may require changes to the original lesson plan. Like, for example, if a teacher is unable to complete a lesson due to a lack of time, or if the class is suspended due to the bad weather or other reasons, so the teacher can indicate in the remark section that the lesson will be continued or transferred to the following day. So this helps to ensure that students stay on the track with their learning and all that learning objectives are still met despite any disruptions. So as for the reflection, in this reflection section of the daily lesson log, requires teachers to assess and reflect on their effectiveness as an educator. So in this section, the teacher should make notes, several key areas, including the number of learners who earned 80% or more in the evaluation, or the number of learners who require additional activities for remediation, and those who continue to require remediation. So the teacher also should also evaluate the effectiveness of the remedial lesson and the teaching strategies and methods that worked well and why. So this could include issues related to classroom management, access to resources, student behavior, or other challenges. So that would be all for my topic. May I call on Mr. Cabarse for the next topic?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Kirl Cabarse speaking, and I will be talking about the different parts of a detailed lesson plan, or DLP. So, newly hired teacher without professional teaching experience shall require to prepare a daily detailed lesson plan, or DLP, for a year. Applicant teachers as well as teachers in the service, including master teachers who will conduct demonstration teaching, shall be required to prepare a DLP. Newly hired teacher who earned a rating of very satisfactory or outstanding in the RPMS in a year shall no longer be required to prepare DLPs. While newly hired teachers who earned a rating of satisfactory shall still be required to prepare DLPs until such time that their RPMS assessment has improved. However, when new content is integrated into the curriculum, all teachers are required to write a detailed lesson plan for the content of or subject matter. So it is really important, regardless of what position you are. It's either you are a master teacher, or you are a pre-service teacher, or you are a new teacher. It is really important to have your detailed lesson planning so that you have your own basis on the flow of what you are going to teach to your students. So next slide. So first, we have objectives. So as mentioned above, the lesson plan objectives are statements that describe the expected learning outcomes of the learners at the end of the lesson. So from the word itself, objectives, so what are the teacher's expectation of the outcomes that the students will require after, or the students will acquire after the lesson. So an objectives we must possess, in making the objectives must possess of three factors. We have the cognitive, affective, and also the psychomotor. So when we're talking about cognitive, it involves your mental capacity, your mind, And we're talking about affective, your emotion, and psychomotor is your skills. And there are added one factor, which is the values. So according to Air Asian in 1994, the lesson plan objectives first describe a student's behavior that should result from instruction. Second, state the behavior in terms that can be observed and assessed. And third, indicate the content on which the behavior will perform. So lesson plan objectives should be aligned with the curriculum, standards, and must be stated in terms of what learners can or will be able to do at the end of the lesson. So your objectives and of course your lesson plan and of course your curriculum should be aligned. Kay lain mo sad kayo if you have the curriculum but your lesson plan is different from the curriculum that you are basing, right? So next slide please. So we have the content. Content is one of the most important in making your lesson plan. So this pertains to the subject matter or the specific content that the lesson aims to teach. In the curriculum guide, a particular topic can be tackled in a week or two. So when we're talking about content, unsay sulod sa imong pagtudlo. So it is a subject matter. So if we're talking about math and our math is regarding to number sense, so all of our content must be a number sense. And also because of the longest run and because of the longest discussion about the number sense, it can be reached to a week or to two. Next. So we have the learning resources. So from the word itself, resources, this is a list of resources that a teacher uses to deliver the lesson. These include the reference used and the other resources needed for the different lesson activities. As stated above, the references a teacher may use include the TG/LM textbook and resources found in the LRMDS portal used for the lesson. The other resources include those described in the DLL above. So in making your lesson plan, we should have our learning resources, like for example, our textbooks, of course, internet, but we should make sure that our sources is coming from the credible sources. Next. So we have the procedure. So the procedure outlines the steps and learning experiences for learners to achieve lesson objectives. It varies based on the teacher's specialization and instructional strategies. Flexibility is encouraged, and changes can be made based on constraints on teaching adjustments. The procedure should clearly outline the lessons part, which are the including before, during, and after. So formative assessment is used to measure understanding and provide homework related to the lesson. Teachers must promptly check assignments. So in procedures now, we must have before the lesson, during the lesson, and of course after the lesson. Now let's talk about the formative assessment. So the formative assessment is done before the instruction. This is to assess the prior knowledge and also to assess the weakness or the strength of the students. Like for example, you are talking about science and you are giving what you call this the pre-exam, diba? Pre-assessment to assess if the students really learned from the previous school year. Next. So the giving of assignment is optional and should follow the provision of the DepEd Memorandum Number 329 Series of 2010, entitled Guidelines on Giving Homework or Assignments to All Public Elementary Schools. Pupils' giving of assignments shall also be optional in all other grade levels. So of course, in making your homeworks, it should be aligned to what you have taught in that specific day. So for example, you are talking about speech in English. So your assignment should be also aligned with your topic, which is the speech. Next. So we have the remarks. So this is the part of DLP in which a teacher shall document specific instances that results in continuation of lessons to the following day in case of reteaching. Insufficient time, transfer of lessons to the following day as a result of class suspension. So in this area, in the remarks, of course, you should take down notes of what you have already taught. Diba? Because time will always You should always manage your time in making your lesson. So in remarks, you should always take down notes of what you need to talk about or what you need to tackle about in the next morning. So next, so we have the reflection. This part of DLP should be filled out right after delivery of the lesson. Teachers are encouraged to think about their lessons, particularly the parts that went well and the parts that were weak, and write about it briefly. In the reflection, teachers can share their thoughts and feelings about their lessons, including things about the lessons that were successfully implemented, need to improve, and could be adjusted in the future. As in the DLL, teachers can also talk about their learners who did well in the lesson and those who need help. So in the reflection, you can say if you can assess the students' learning. So in this area, diri na mo sulod ang assessment of learning. So when we're talking about assessment of learning, it is after the instruction. So meaning you are going to evaluate if the students really learned something from your discussion. So as stated here, the teachers can also talk about the learners who did well in the lesson and those who needs help. You need to acknowledge the achievements of the students, and you should always also acknowledge of those students who really didn't do great in a specific subject. So next, so I think that's my last report. Thank you so much for listening, Alyssa.
Okay, so to conclude our overall report, so since we are talking about the DepEd Order number 42 series of 2016, so this is issued to enclose the policy guidelines on daily lesson preparation for the K to 12 basic education program. So from the word itself, daily lesson preparation. So we are talking about how we are preparing before the delivery of the instruction. So we are preparing the lessons for our everyday class, and this is issued to ensure that there is effective delivery of instruction or teaching, as well as this is issued to ensure that the teachers will be able to aid the students in attaining learning outcomes. So that is all for our report. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.